Hello, my name is Benjamin Hart. I'm an American attorney and the Managing Director of Integrity Legal here in Bangkok, Thailand. In this video today we're going to be discussing specifically the K-1 Fiance visa and doing kind of a comparison contrast to the various U.S. marriage visas, specifically the CR1, IR1, and K3 marriage visas. So why are we doing this? Well, over the years, a lot of folks that come to us with respect to immigration matters in a family context, especially where it's involving a foreign spouse or proposed spouse, basically the first question they ask is, what's going to be easier, for lack of a better term? Most folks ask, what's going to be easier, the K-1 Fiance visa or a marriage visa? Easy is probably the wrong question to ask. The question to ask is, what are the benefits involved with the Fiance visa versus the marriage visa? So let's go through that. First of all, the Fiance visa generally processes faster compared to U.S. marriage visas, but definitely faster than categories such as the CR1 and the IR1, which generally take longer due to a multitude of different reasons, which I'll get into momentarily. But specifically, as sort of counterintuitive as it may seem, the K-1 Fiance visa tends to process more quickly compared to the marriage visas. The K3, which is a supplemental filing that occurs after the initial filing for CR1 or IR1 benefits, the K3 does process faster compared to the CR1 or the IR1, but the downside of the K3 is it does process slower than the Fiance visa, and the K3 is sort of in the middle, in the sense that unlike a CR1 or an IR1 visa, it doesn't immediately confer lawful permanent residence upon entry to the United States, and at the same time still requires adjustment of status, but still processes less quickly than the Fiance visa, because it processes much more akin to a marriage visa, notwithstanding the fact they do tend to process more quickly than the other marriage visa categories. But back to simply the Fiance visa, the one major benefit of the Fiance visa is it does process more quickly. The downside, in a way, it bifurcates out the overall process, where it takes longer and you have to front load processing of the IR1 and CR1 visa. The K1 visa usually processes out in about, right now, 7 or 8 months, maybe 9. And all these cases, they differ. There's no way to really say with any certainty how a specific case or how long a specific case is going to process. But that being said, the Fiance visa, the K1, it does process more quickly. So let's say the fiance gets in the United States in 7 or 8 months. Then the fiance is permitted to stay in the U.S. for only 90 days. They need to go ahead and marry their American citizen fiance, and they need to go ahead and adjust to permanent residence. This adjustment is on top of the processing time, so in a way, of the processing time to get there. So in a way, you've sort of backloaded the permanent residence part of this process, but you've gotten your loved one there more quickly into the United States physically. This can pose problems because the Fiance visa, while the adjustment of status is processing, it's rather difficult for the fiance to leave the United States once they've entered, at least until such time as the green card has been issued. Now, this is going to be the processing of the adjustment of status is going to be very dependent on the local USCIS office and the caseload associated therewith. But that being said, once someone's arrived in K1 status, unless something such as advanced parole is utilized, which is discussed at length in another video I made, unless advanced parole is utilized, that individual it's not a good idea for them to leave the U.S. Well, it's definitely not a good idea if they want to maintain status, because leaving before the adjustment has been finalized will result in a cancellation of that individual's status. But that being said, if advanced parole is obtained, which can take a while, then yes, it's possible to depart the United States while maintaining one's status. To just sort of moving ahead with respect to how this all works, so you've got the Fiance visa, it moves faster, but you have to deal with the adjustment of status on the back end. The traditional marriage visa, CR1 and IR1 categories, they move more slowly, but upon issuance, you've got a green card. And upon entry, the foreign spouse enters and is granted is issued an I-551 stamp upon entry. That acts as their temporary green card for a year, while the permanent green card is sent in the mail. So basically, when looking at this, that's the way to analyze it. You've got the K-1, which is going to move more quickly. You've got the marriage visas, specifically the CR1 and the IR1, which is going to move more slowly but issues permanent residence upon entry. And then you've got this sort of middle category K3, which does not confer permanent residence upon entry, still requires adjustment of status in the United States, but on the plus side, the K3 does move a little bit faster sometimes than the CR1 and the IR1. It should be noted that there is a policy with the National Visa Center called administrative closure. If the NVC receives an approval notice on an underlying I-130 prior to receiving an approval notice on an I-129F K3 filing, then they'll just go ahead and disregard the K3 filing and simply proceed on the I-130. So in a lot of ways, sometimes a K3 can be not particularly advantageous sort of all the way around.